The story begins inside a luxurious mansion. Leah is finally putting into motion the escape plan she has spent months carefully preparing. Every step she takes is so quiet that she's terrified of waking her boyfriend, Ed, who is sleeping just a few feet away. Leah is one of the world's most brilliant optical scientists, but she's also trapped under the control of a dangerously unstable man. The fear in her eyes says everything. Carefully, she disables the security system and silently places the remote back where it belongs. Then she slips into the dressing room and grabs the bag she had secretly packed in advance. Each step feels like walking on the edge of a knife. But trouble arrives at the worst possible moment. With one small mistake, her foot accidentally bumps into the dog's food bowl. The metallic crash echoes through the silent house like an explosion. Leah's heart nearly stops. She quickly pulls out her phone and checks the security cameras. When she sees that Ed is still fast asleep, she finally lets out a shaky sigh of relief. A few moments later, she reaches the garage, believing the hardest part is over. But another obstacle is waiting for her. Her beloved dog, Zeus, suddenly appears in front of her. The cold electronic collar around his neck reminds Leah that even the dog is under Ed's control. She can't bear the thought of leaving him trapped in this prison, so she kneels down and tries to remove the collar. But the frightened Zeus panics and crashes into a nearby sports car, instantly setting off its blaring alarm. Now it's only a matter of seconds before everything falls apart. Leah has no time to think. She sprints toward the wall, climbs the 2-meter barrier, pushes through the thick bushes, and finally reaches the road outside. Just then, headlights cut through the darkness. Her sister, Amy, has arrived right on time. Leah doesn't waste a second explaining anything. She just begs Amy to drive. But before they can leave, Ed suddenly appears. In a fit of rage, he smashes the car window and tries to drag Leah out. Amy slams her foot on the accelerator with all her strength, and the car rockets away before Ed can stop them. Furious and helpless, he's left standing in the middle of the road. 2 weeks later, Leah is hiding at the home of her friend James to stay out of Ed's reach. James is a former police officer, and his presence gives her at least a small sense of safety. But years of domestic abuse and psychological torment have left deep scars on her mind. Even after all this time, she's too terrified to step outside. Something as simple as picking up the mail from the front door fills her with anxiety. If she spots a stranger standing on the street, panic takes over and she rushes back inside. Out of pure habit, she even covers the webcam on her laptop, constantly afraid that someone might be watching her. It felt as if someone was watching her every second of the day. Then one day, Amy arrived with shocking news. Shortly after Leah left him, Ed had taken his own life. The unexpected report left Leah completely stunned. As she watched the news coverage and realized it was true, all the fear and pain she had buried inside finally came rushing back. She confessed to her sister why she had been forced to run away in the first place. Ed had an unhealthy obsession with controlling everyone around him. If she ever disobeyed him, physical abuse was almost guaranteed. A few months earlier, Ed had wanted to have a child. But Leah knew that having a baby would only trap her even deeper in his toxic grip. So, without telling him, she secretly kept taking birth control pills. Now that the monster was finally gone, she believed she could leave the past behind and start a brand new life. But only a few days later, strange things began happening. Leah received a letter from a lawyer. To her surprise, the attorney was none other than Tom, Ed's younger brother. He had come to carry out the terms of Ed's last will. Ed had left Leah an inheritance worth $5 million to be paid in monthly installments of $100,000. However, there were strict conditions attached. She could not be involved in any criminal activity, nor could she ever be diagnosed with a mental illness. The whole arrangement felt suspicious and unsettling, but walking away from that kind of money wasn't easy. In the end, Leah signed the agreement. What none of them realized was that an invisible presence was silently watching everything from the corner of the room. Soon after, Leah's life was filled with one terrifying incident after another. While cooking, she carefully turned the gas flame down to its lowest setting. But the moment she looked away, the burner suddenly roared to full power on its own, and within seconds the food in the pan burst into flames. At night, She constantly felt as though someone was standing right behind her, staring at her. Yet every time she turned around, there was no one there. Even while she slept, an unseen force slowly began pulling the blanket off her body. Then, without warning, a series of bright flashes jolted her awake. She looked down and saw that the blanket had somehow fallen onto the floor beside the bed. Hesitantly, she leaned forward to pick it up. But as she pulls on the blanket, she realizes the other end is trapped beneath something. Then she sees it, an invisible force slowly crawling toward her. Terrified, she lets out a piercing scream and immediately calls her friend James for help. By the time James rushes into the room, everything is back to normal. There's no sign that anything strange ever happened. But the disturbing incidents only become more frequent, and Leah's fragile mental state begins to fall apart once again. A few days later, she gets ready for an important job interview, only to discover that the portfolio she packed the night before has mysteriously vanished. During the interview, she suddenly starts feeling dizzy and collapses unconscious. At the hospital, doctors make a shocking discovery. Her body still contains a large amount of sleeping medication, even though she hasn't taken any since escaping from Ed. When she returns home, she finds the very same bottle of pills in the bathroom, the one she had once used to drug Ed. A chill runs down her spine. She becomes convinced that Ed never died and has somehow used his advanced optical technology to make himself invisible. Determined to uncover the truth, Leah and James confront Tom. But Tom shows them graphic photos of his brother's dead body along with the urn containing his ashes. He insists that he personally saw Ed's corpse. According to Tom, Ed's greatest weapon was never his inventions. It was his ability to manipulate people's minds and psychologically control them. He believes that everything Leah is experiencing is simply the lingering trauma and fear left behind after Ed's death. At this point, no one believes a word Leah says. Then she suffers another devastating blow. She goes to her sister Amy hoping to find comfort, but instead Amy lashes out at her and cuts all ties. Someone had used Leah's email account to send Amy a cruel and deeply offensive message. Leah desperately tries to explain that she didn't write it, but no one believes her. She knows Ed is behind it all, yet she has no proof. Little by little, Leah's mind begins to break. Emotionally shattered, she collapses onto the floor in despair. Seeing her like that, James's daughter, Shelley, walks over to comfort her. But in the next second, an unseen force suddenly slams a powerful punch straight into the little girl's face. From Shelley's perspective, the only person in the room was Leah. So naturally, all the blame falls on her. When James arrives and sees the injuries on his daughter's face, he loses the last bit of trust he had in Leah. He's convinced she's hurting herself just to gain everyone's sympathy. In the end, he takes his daughter and walks out, leaving Leah completely alone. Even after being abandoned by everyone, this time Leah refuses to break. She's still terrified, but the anger burning inside her and her determination to survive are far stronger than her fear. Staring into the empty room, she screams at the top of her lungs. Then she spreads coffee powder all over the floor, hoping to catch the footprints of the invisible intruder. Suddenly, another idea crosses her mind. She grabs her phone and calls Ed's number. To her shock, the phone starts ringing. The sound is coming from the attic above the house. Leah rushes upstairs and actually finds Ed's missing phone hidden there. Inside, she discovers secret photos that were taken of her while she was asleep, along with the interview portfolio that had mysteriously disappeared. Just then, a text message pops up on the screen. At that exact moment, she hears footsteps behind her near the staircase. Without wasting a second, Leah throws a bucket of paint straight ahead. For a brief instant, the paint outlines the shape of a human figure before it vanishes into thin air. Following the trail of paint, she reaches the kitchen and sees the mysterious person washing the paint off in the sink. But as she gets closer, an invisible force suddenly grabs her by the throat and starts choking her. She barely manages to break free and runs out of the house. Even then, she doesn't go to the police because she knows no one would ever believe such an unbelievable story. This time, she realizes she has to save herself. Determined to put an end to the invisible attacker, Leah decides to return to Ed's mansion. She's convinced that the secret behind the invisibility is hidden somewhere inside, and that the evidence proving her innocence is waiting there as well. After a long journey, she finally reaches the mansion and slowly pushes open the door to the laboratory. Inside, Leah notices something strange sitting on a display rack, an invisibility suit. At that moment, the horrifying truth becomes clear. The invisible figure haunting her house was none other than Adrian himself. She quickly grabs the suit, planning to take it with her, but suddenly she hears a dog barking outside. Adrian has returned. Thinking fast, Leah hides the invisibility suit inside a closet and slips behind the door to stay out of sight. Moments later, mysterious footprints begin appearing across the carpet. As soon as the invisible man opens the door, Leah uses all her strength to shove him aside and manages to escape. The second she gets outside, she calls Emily and asks her to meet at a nearby restaurant. She has to tell someone the truth. When they meet, Leah reveals everything: the invisibility suit and the shocking fact that Adrian is still alive. But before Emily can even process what she's hearing, terror fills her face. In the very next second, she is brutally killed right in front of Leah. Even worse, all the evidence makes it look like Leah committed the murder. She's immediately arrested and taken to a psychiatric hospital. No matter how desperately she tries to explain the truth, nobody believes her. To calm her down, the doctors prepare a sedative injection. But just before the medication takes effect, Leah hears Adrian's voice whispering in her ear. When she wakes up, another devastating surprise is waiting for her. She's pregnant. She soon discovers that the birth control pills she had been taking were secretly switched by Adrian long ago. Later, Tom comes to visit with a message from Adrian. If Leah agrees to keep the baby and return to Adrian, he will use his influence to make all the charges against her disappear. Now there is no longer any doubt that Adrian is alive. Consumed by anger, Leah throws the documents onto the floor. While Tom is distracted, she quietly steals a steel pen from his briefcase. Leah knows Adrian is watching her from somewhere, and she also knows he would never risk harming his unborn child. That night, she turns on the shower and uses the stolen pen to slash her own wrist. Her desperate plan works perfectly. The moment Adrian sees Leah hurting herself, he finally reveals his presence. As soon as she gets the chance, Leah grabs a pen and repeatedly stabs him with it. The invisible suit is badly damaged and starts malfunctioning. The loud commotion draws the security guards to the scene, throwing the entire facility into chaos. Thanks to the suit, Ed's strength and speed have become far beyond that of an ordinary human, allowing him to overpower several guards with ease. Leah spots a pistol lying on the floor, picks it up, and chases after him. Outside, a heavy rainstorm is pouring down. The rain interferes with the suit's technology, causing Ed's silhouette to flicker into view every few seconds. Leah does everything she can to catch him, but he manages to escape once again. She immediately realizes that James and his daughter are now in serious danger. Without wasting a second, she calls James and tells him to protect his little girl. But by then, it's already too late. When James rushes home, he finds his daughter critically injured. Before he can even react, the invisible man attacks him as well, leaving him completely helpless. At that crucial moment, Leah arrives just in time. She grabs a fire extinguisher and sprays it all across the hallway. The thick white powder sticks to the invisible man's suit, revealing his entire body. Without hesitation, Leah opens fire and unloads multiple shots, finally bringing him crashing to the ground. She walks over and tears off his mask, expecting to see Ed, but the face underneath leaves her stunned. It isn't Ed at all. It's his younger brother, Tom. At the very same time, the police search beneath Ed's mansion and discover the real Ed locked inside a hidden underground bunker. The case is quickly declared solved. According to the official story, Tom had always been jealous of his brother's brilliance. He supposedly stole the invisibility suit, kidnapped Ed, and carried out the attacks to get revenge on Leah. Ed is presented as an innocent victim, and the entire world accepts that explanation. But Leah doesn't believe a single word of it. She knows Ed better than anyone else. And deep down, she's convinced that the entire scheme was orchestrated by him from the very beginning. Tom was nothing more than a pawn a scapegoat sacrificed to protect the real monster. When the law failed to punish Ed, Leah decided to bring the story to its own terrifying end. She personally visits Ed's mansion and agrees to have dinner with him, pretending that she wants to make peace. Hidden beneath her clothes is a listening device, allowing James to hear every word from outside. Her plan is simple: make Ed confess to his crimes with his own mouth. Throughout dinner, Ed acts polite, charming, and deeply sympathetic. But he constantly paints himself as the true victim. Then he casually repeats his signature catchphrase. At that exact moment, Leah's doubts disappear. She realizes every suspicion she ever had was true. More importantly, she understands that no conversation will ever make him admit the truth. A faint smile appears on her face, as if she has finally accepted the reality before her. A few moments later, she excuses herself and heads to the bathroom. Meanwhile, Ed sits back with a satisfied grin, enjoying the power and control he believes he has regained. But he has no idea that death is only seconds away. In the very next moment, his throat is slashed. But who killed him? A short while later, Leah walks out of the bathroom and pretends to be horrified by the gruesome scene. She immediately calls emergency services, flawlessly acting devastated, frightened, and in complete shock. Then she slowly moves out of the security camera's view. As soon as her face disappears into the darkness, every trace of fear vanishes. She gives one last look to the dying Ed and quietly whispers the very same words he used to say. The truth is, she never went to the bathroom at all. Using it as an excuse, Leah slipped into the dressing room, where she retrieved a second invisibility suit she had secretly hidden earlier. She used the exact same method Ed had once used against others, and finally took her revenge. A little later, James arrives at the mansion. His eyes immediately fall on the invisibility suit hidden inside Leah's bag, and in an instant, he understands the entire truth. But he says nothing. He chooses silence because, in his eyes, this is the only justice Ed ever deserved. In the film's haunting final moments, Leah walks out of the mansion into the cold night air, the very place that had kept her imprisoned for years. At last, she leaves her painful past behind and steps toward a new beginning. And with that chilling ending, the story comes to a close. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Also, subscribe to this channel for more stories like this.